Good morning. I'm Ray McCormack. Welcome to FDIC 2012, Tactical Safety. I appreciate you taking time out from your schedule to come to this class. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Now, the class is also being videotaped, and you know my record on videotape. So, I'll try and keep it clean, and as you can see, we're going for a clean look. And the other thing is, it's kind of funny, but most of the men comment on the fact that I don't have a mustache any longer, which I find a bit odd, but that's okay. I have 30 years with the FDNY. I'm a lieutenant assigned to Ladder 28 in Harlem. Previously, I'll go back, I was a fireman in Ladder 24 for 13 years. And that's in Midtown Manhattan, and I love that place. I got promoted, and I was asked by a legendary officer if I was interested in coming to 69 engine, and I said yes, and I never regretted it. What happened, though, along the way was that I discovered the importance of the engine. I was a bit of a truck snob for 13 years, and, our culture is deep, like most fire departments. It runs pretty deep. And there's always the engine and truck stuff. So people say, Ray, I know you do mostly engine classes, but you're in the truck now. How come? I said, well, I just wanted to get in touch with my feminine side. But after a year, I realized I just needed the rest. We were on a call not too long ago, and I was working in the engine. And the chief asked us if we were on our way up to this accident, and I said, yeah. And he said, you have the truck with you? I said, yeah, we got the second piece. Well, I'll tell you what, I had to lock the doors. The guys in the engine were rolling out laughing. The truck, not so much. But anyway, this program, Tactical Safety, I actually did a version of this 3 years ago here at FDIC as a workshop. And you know that I'm into safety, obviously. So what I felt was that we're doing safety, maybe we could do it a little bit differently. And I'll have a slide on that. Not being a separate thing, that we build it into our operation so that what you do is safe, period. In other words, there doesn't have to be this extra component. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'll tell you some stories, obviously, just to prove the point and drive the points home a little bit more. So, change comes to the fire service. It does. And we resist it, no doubt about it. Some things we like, some things we don't like. As you can see, I got rid of my mustache after all those years. You know what? Change is good. Change is good. It keeps us fresh. It keeps the ideas flowing. How many of you in this room are chief officers? If you could show me by a show of hands. Okay. How many are safety officers? Okay. Now, was that the same amount of hands? How many safety firefighters do we have in the room? One? All right. Two? Okay. We all have to do that. We all have to do our part. Any questions so far? Now, I'll just take a little minute here to talk about Urban Firefighter Magazine. That's my email address. You can contact me. Also on Facebook, obviously. So Urban Firefighter Magazine was created by myself and Eric Roden, who's somewhere in the audience here. And we created it because we loved the job. That was our present to the American Fire Service, the worldwide fire service, really, because it was firefighter friendly. It was free. Wow, you guys are tough this morning. But anyway. It's on the internet. It's absolutely free. If you haven't seen it, that's your homework assignment, either tonight or when you get home, to check it out. It's a beautiful magazine. You're going to hear Bobby Halton talk about it tomorrow on Thursday's opening session, and where it's going next. So it's very exciting news, and we're proud of it. And it's a treat to actually make, and it's a treat to read. This is how I started off. Are you familiar with my column, Tactical Safety? I put it on fire engineering, just not every week, but almost every week. I've been doing it for about a little over 2 years. I try and pump one out like 3 a month. And they're, bloggish, but I also talk about, tactics and things we can do in a fireground to improve our health and wellness. So this is what I feel. Examining the process of firefighting to see if there's a better and safer way to operate. That's what we should be looking at, right? A few years back, when I was in the engine, we field tested a standpipe fold for the FDNY. It was designed by a young firefighter, and you know what? To the job's credit, they ended up going with it, and it was a great thing. But of course, initially, there was resistance to it. What do we need this for? I like the old way. But you have to be open-minded about things. So we were open-minded about it. We drilled on it every day. And then as it turned out, everybody started loving it. It was great. And to this day, it was a better change. So your people are your best resource, your firefighters. Then a few years later, we were looking at it again. I had done a standpipe class here, hose loads and deployments, as a hot. And one of the components was standpipe operations. So we were using the New York fold versus the Denver fold. Does anybody here use the Denver fold? Okay. Anybody here use the New York fold? Okay. The New York fold, which is, of course, far superior to the Denver fold, it's so easy, even a truckie can do it. The point is, we looked at it again, and we examined it. We had done multiple sessions with the attendees of the hot class. And my buddy who was doing that particular segment says, you know what? There's another way to tweak this. There's another way to tweak that. Back in the firehouse in our basement, looking at it. Anyway, I ended up doing an article for our internal magazine, WNYF, where we talked about these things. But you know what? It all came out of drilling and an internal care, an internal pride of our culture to make it better. Can we make it better? Well, the only way you're going to make it better is if you look at it and you tear it down, break it down and rebuild it. Maybe there's some stuff you got to throw away. Maybe there's some parts you got to add. But we have to look at everything we do as a fire service. There's nothing that can't be examined and looked at more closely to see how we can do it better and safer. That's where the safety integration comes in. You know that commercial for the spaghetti sauce? They tell you the flavor's already in there. Same thing with this. Want to get the safety into what we do. I'll give you a couple examples. And you might say, well, those are kind of basic examples. Yeah, they're basic things about firefighting that we do every day. Charging your hose line. Where do you charge your hose line? I've even read in magazines they gave a fire on the second floor, in the attic on the second floor. And in the article, the author said, bring the line up dry to the second floor, it'll be easier. Well, that's true. It will be easier. But it won't be safer, because you can only be so tough for so long without water. You charge the line outside. Why? We don't know the construction of this house. Let's say you work in an area that has balloon frame. You see fire coming out the third floor window. Fire may not be on the third floor, but it's showing itself there. When we give a size up, when we arrive and we say, we have fire showing on the third floor. Yeah, that's what you see. That may not be what's going on, though. So even a nice size up over the radio to tell everybody what else is happening may not be accurate. So everything in the fire service you got to take with a grain of salt until you determine what it really is. So if you go into this same house and all of a sudden it's a basement fire and you go bloop into the basement without a hand line or a dry line, you don't have much safety then. Take your time to do the right things. If you're going to tell me that you don't have the energy or the strength to take a charged hose line from the front steps of a house to the second floor up 10 steps, and you're gassed by doing that event, then you really shouldn't be doing this job. But the worst part of it is to believe that you should bring it up there dry. That's a mistake. A firefighter friend of mine was telling me a story that he had a fire behind the staircase on the first floor. They went in, they hit it. He wanted to do a search of the second floor. So he brought that same hand line up to the second floor with him, thinking that would increase his safety. Turns out the fire redevelops. He's upstairs. It's getting hotter and hotter. He knows he has to come down. He has the line. But of course, he's headed in the wrong direction. He's coming down the stairs, but the fire is behind the stairs. So he has no way to actually hit it. He's just going to have to get down the stairs. He did. They put it out. So he said, what the heck? What happened? I said, the line should have stayed down there. You can't leave your wingman, so to speak. You have a line down there, you got to let it stay there, bring another one in, and go upstairs, if that's what you want to do, or if that's what your SOP says. But you left a fire unchecked and went above. Not good. Not good. A lot of our line of duty deaths, unfortunately, are engine water related. And we have to make sure we eliminate that. That's something we can control. If we need a hand line in a particular spot, then we have to put it there. Any questions on anything so far? I'm going to take a little sip here. You go to a place. You're going to force entry into this house or apartment. Where do you put your tools that you're not going to use? Do you have a spot for that? Where I work, we have 2 firefighters that force the door. One firefighter carries the axe and the Halligan. The other firefighter carries a 6-foot hook and an extinguisher. Okay, that's how we operate. That's your basic. But we take it a little step further. When they force that door and it gets smoky, they put their tools in a particular spot. Because when it goes lights out, they're going to increase their safety because they know where their tools are. They purposely set them next to the door on a particular side. It's there every time. So not only does the person who carried the tool know where it is, I know where it is, and so does the other person. We all know where it is. So there's your safety factor right there. In those most basic of things, we're building it into what we do every day. But you have to deconstruct what you do so that you can tweak it. Same thing if you go to the roof. Cut open a roof, let's just say. You should put that saw, stop it from running, put it where it should be. Put it off to the side, you know exactly where your tools are then. Come back and get it. So, it might sound like a minor thing, but these are where we start, at our basic things that we do every day. One day, I started to wear my seatbelt at work. It was a couple of years ago, and now we have nice orange ones. So one day my driver's driving me, and I said, we're going to run the tape on this one? Well, I heard this story, actually. I heard this story. That's what it was. I heard this story about a lieutenant. Anyway, so he's wearing his belt. I said, you know what? If we get into an accident today, the job's going to love us. He's like, what do you mean? We get into an accident. I said, we both have our seatbelts on, and that's what they want. And that's what we all should be doing. You know what? I don't want to go through the windshield. I was lucky. It never happened to me. But I don't want to end my career as a projectile. No, thank you. I can put my SCBA straps on while I have my seatbelt on. It's not a big deal. So what did we do? We resist it, right? We resist that change. So then what happens? We get orange seatbelts, right? Then we get buzzers. Then we get things that won't allow the rig to move until you've sat in the seat. It checks your weight, checks your height. You got your seatbelt on? All right, now we can leave. So we made it worse for ourselves because we wouldn't comply with the easy stuff. So all this stuff is coming. We need to be in charge of it. We need to take control of the fire service. We need to make it our own. Now, when I asked you chiefs, if you were safety chiefs, I don't think we need safety chiefs. Not if we integrate safety into everybody's head. We don't need you because I'll have 20 safety chiefs right there. You have to be plugged into fire tactics and a safe way to operate if you're going to be effective on the fire ground. Obviously, things that are outlandish, most of us shouldn't be doing anyway. We should have that in our head. In other words, do I need somebody to go around and check me? I'm dangerous? No, I'm not dangerous. I don't operate dangerously. There could be things that are going on. Maybe I need an eye in the sky or an overall view from the outside, but we should all be checking on each other. One person is not going to cut it at any fire. One safety chief isn't going to be able to cover everything. We all have to have it in our head that we need to exercise safety. How many teach at the fire academy? Anybody teach at your fire academy? Are you a stickler at your fire academy? I heard another story. They were doing some training, chainsaw training. And we have these chaps that you wear. They're cool, they're orange. One of the firefighters thought it was a vest and put it on. I kid you not. I said, those go on your legs, not here. Anyway, if you teach at an academy, you have your permission slip to be tough and a stickler. That's where we have to be tough and be a stickler. And when you work in the field, you should do the same thing. I'm not saying turn yourself into a dentist, the officer that likes to drill all the time. But you can't let little things slip. You're forcing a door. Person's going to swing the axe. I firmly believe that one person should be on one knee, set right across from that door, and swing the axe. None of this sideways, none of this take it, do it different. Learn the right way to do it. Continue to do it the right way all the time. There are techniques. We are not, everything's cool. That's baloney. There are ways to operate better and more effectively. A while back, I had an argument with an online discussion with a fella. He was a chief. No, I'm sorry. He was a training instructor from Massachusetts. And, of course, I didn't know his name, which is fine. But we talked about whether you should hold the bail of the nozzle for better control or to leave it alone. And I believe in the Ron Popeil method of engine operations. Set it and forget it. Keep it open. Wow, that doesn't get anything either. All right. Yeah. This is all good stuff, I'm telling you. Anyway, so we talked a little bit about it. Anyway, he says, yeah, but if you lose control of the line, you can always shut it down in an emergency. I said, how many emergencies do you have where you have to shut the line down? I thought you had to open it up. So I said, listen, if it's so good, how are you losing control of the line? Well, from then on, I never heard from this guy again. But I believe, because I teach it, I believe there's a certain way we're going to talk a little bit about holding the line. That's very important. We do that every day when we go to fires. You have to know the right way to operate a hand line. And the right way to operate it is safety. You get your safety up. The engine is there to increase everyone's safety on a fire ground. That's the job of an engine company. But an engine company without water in its line doesn't increase anything. New method of instruction. Integration. Not separate. Not a separate division. Nothing. No. We put it in there. What's important in your life? Right? What's important in your life? Fire service, obviously. Family, friends. Getting back, right? We want to get back home. What do they say in the bar? What do they say? I've heard. You don't have to stay here, right? You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way, putting your name to that little tag. If you didn't like going to fires, I don't understand why you're riding a fire truck. Not that I'm saying we're wishing for work, but I want to be there when it does occur. Correct? There's nothing wrong with liking what we do. I'm into it. Why not? Risk-benefit analysis. Now, I have my own idea of risk-benefit analysis, and so do you, and you, and you. Everybody here has their own weights and measures. What you think is risky, I don't. So how do we get a general consensus of that? You know, is a fire with a truss building dangerous in the first minute, or does it get more dangerous as the minutes progress? Generally as the minutes progress, right? Is a fire with a truss roof more dangerous when it's open area or in a bedroom that's 10 by 10? And we have support 10 feet away for that truss. Which is worse? Open. So we have to examine our houses, our building construction, and what's going on. Really, at this point in time, we should kind of know the database of homes in our area. I firmly believe that. We need to get on board with what's going on with the construction of houses. Now, renovations, you're never going to know what somebody's going to do in their house, obviously. But I think the day of not realizing a place either had a basement or, you know, the glue lamb beams were on the first floor and burned through, we should know that. The other thing I believe in is, and maybe we'd have a better luck with this, is that we should be pushing for sheetrock on covering every ceiling in every house. My house came without a room covered in sheetrock. The ceiling is open. I went and looked at a model home the other day. I said to the guy, you know, do you do this ceiling? No. Why? As well, in case of a fire starts. Well, there's nothing down there. Really? That light down there, you know, the electric, that's the heater, none of that could cause a fire? So, yeah, people want sprinklers. I get that. But we got to start at a lower level. We got to get sheetrock there first, right? That's something we can do locally. So we all determine risk is different for one person and another. You have your, well, I can tell you where I work. They call it unusual personal risk. We give out medals for that. Unusual personal risk. Great personal risk is the next one, and extreme personal risk. That's a scary one. They're all kind of scary, but that one's definitely scary. But what is the reward? What is the reward? Saving of life is the reward. Hopefully that's what you're going to be doing. Saving someone's life. That's what we signed up to do. But we also have to be careful of what we do, correct? We have to pay attention to what's being told at conferences like this. Our books, we have to rewrite the books. The books have to be rewritten. You know, the medical side got it down. They change CPR like every couple years. We have the same stuff going on forever. You know, if you look at the manuals with, you know, how to roll up hose, how to do all this stuff, it's like, really? You know, is that really important? I guess, you know, you want to roll up hose all day. Point is, we have to take control of our textbooks and get more involved in that. You know, we have internet teaching, obviously, right? We have all kinds of portals for ourselves to learn, but we have to be willing to learn. And I think that's also very important, that we make sure our young firefighters, new firefighters, I don't just mean age-wise, but new firefighters stay current, really stay current, and develop a love. All of you have a love. You're here. It's the people that are 10 toes up at home we have to work on. All right. There's always going to be danger. Some of us like a little bit more danger than we should like. I get that. But there's certain principles you should follow when you go to a fire, obviously. The charge line is a big one, and it's crazy. The other thing is using this charge line. That's another thing we should be doing. Talking about line of duty deaths is always a touchy subject. And without being specific, we can look at nuggets from those events and hopefully learn a few things. But at its core, we need to stop thinking about water as water doing damage to a fire building. That's number one. You have smoke damage, you have heat damage, and we're afraid to open the line? No, open the line. Open the line. Remember that thing called thermal balance? Remember that? We packed that in a trunk. That's gone. Don't worry about thermal balance anymore. That's old hat. We're not even talking about that thing anymore. I remember that as being one of the great engine debates. Thermal balance. You're going to upset it. You know what? We don't care about upsetting thermal balance anymore. Live with it. But the point is, if you're in smoke, and that smoke is hot, and we hear this in line of duty reports, that the crew or the person was experiencing high heat, zero visibility conditions, they realize it's getting worse. They have a bazooka in their hand, and they don't use it. Or they use it minimally. I don't know. I don't really want to open a soda can. You know what? I want to flow some water. Don't be afraid to open the line. If you need to back out, you need to back out. But you have to do something. You might have to do both. You have to do something. Anybody know what NFPA 1403 stands for? Right. It is the standard for live burns in an acquired building. That's what you read. That's what you follow. I went to like a 1401. It wasn't quite a 1403. And after surviving 2 basement fires, I had a fire on the first floor, which I thought was going to be a bunt. I actually knew where it was. That's another thing. When you do one of those, find out from the lighting team where the fire is going to be, because you'll look better that way. You'll go to the right instead of to the left. We go in, and all of a sudden, they're about 10 feet in, and the line drops. Now, it didn't lose water. What happened was the person who had the nozzle firefighter, is burned through his hood already. So yours truly gets up to the nozzle and says, you know what, this is bad. I can feel it permeating through my gear. I can't see anything, but I know hot. I know hot from cold. I open the line in the direction of the room, shut down, had the backup firefighter come up, open the line again. We open the line. The room lit off. We got it. Nobody got hurt except for him. Minor burn. Looked at the ceiling where they had covered over the AC register. The plywood was severely alligated. There was fire all over the place. There was another firefighter trying to do a search on the opposite side of the house. He told me later he was on his belly. The team they were going to send up to the second floor couldn't make the stairs. It was that hot. So, what do you learn? Learn to open up the line. Or back out. Do something. You have to do something. Do not be in hot smoke and open the line. Now, if you're in regular smoke and you can't see the room, you might have to get a little closer to hit it. Not all smoke is created equal. But if you're getting that internal feeling that something's about to, the trigger's about to be pulled on this place, you better make sure you get out of there. All right? And that's a skill everybody has. You have it. You feel it. You know it. How many people here, well, maybe SOPs, I shouldn't ask this, but if you're a department that doesn't have SOPs or SOGs, whatever you want to call them, and every time you go to a fire, it's a special event, you have an issue. Right? You know, if you have to say to the first in engine, hey engine, get a water supply and stretch a line, you know what? You don't have a clue. Because if you have to tell people to do that, that's pretty sad. We have to get away from that. Chief officers, I feel sorry for that have to work on that little level. They shouldn't have to do that. That's the company officers level. Obviously, you go to work and fire, you need water, and you need a hose line. Pretty simple stuff. But if you're making it up as you go along, you're going to have a lot of work on your hands. Now, where I work, we have procedures about 4 feet wide of binders, actually. And we like that because we all know the game plan. I can work in any firehouse in New York City, and that team is going to operate the same way, for the most part, which is nice. So we can move people around. Not a problem. We kind of share the same brain, if you will. You need SOPs. Now, we talk about tactical deconstruction. Basically what I'm telling you is You look at your tactics you have. Look at somebody else's tactics. That's fine. It doesn't matter. We're into sharing these days. It's not an issue. Look at what they do. Do you want to examine what you do? When I did hose loads and deployments here a couple of years back as a hot, we had all these different hose loads you could look at. And it was like a supermarket of hose loads. It was great. Because when you go into your firehouse, you're going to use the one they have. Has it been changed in 30 years? Next thing you know, you got a whole area of monster houses that you haven't planned for. And people are getting hurt in those. We're getting hurt in those. Those places are very scary, very scary. You know, you go into a bedroom that's like a 3-room apartment, you know, you might be outgunned. You got to be careful. Those high volume ceilings, all that stuff is very, very dangerous stuff. That's why we have to see it while it's being built. We have to get a heads up from the building department. What's going on in this place? You know, maybe our safety person should be assigned to the building department. That's going to do us some good right there. This way we know we get the heads up. All right, so benchmarking. What's a benchmark? Right? Where are we at this fire a couple minutes in? Is your dispatch center giving the chief a timer? We do it. You know what? They'll say you're 5 minutes in. You're 10 minutes in. It's just a little something for them to say, okay, where is this thing going? Because no matter how good you are, you do get a little bit of a tunnel vision no matter what you're doing. And somebody can just reset you a little bit. Boom. Okay, we've been at this 10, 15 minutes. Doesn't look good. Doesn't look good. And I'll just share a tip with you in the engine. Basically, if you go into a house and you haven't like made a turn, you probably don't have the fire out either. You know, you can't just go in 3 feet and, you know, that's it. It's a done deal. No. There has to be rubble. Try and make your way to the window. It's blowing out the window. Try and make your way to that window, and then you probably have the fire out. What are we accomplishing? Do we have benchmarks? Anybody use your chiefs out there? Do you use it? I hope so. The other thing that happens with what we do is sometimes our performance isn't what it should be. You ever read stories where we miss someone in a search? Yeah, it does happen, but it really shouldn't. Sometimes it happens because we didn't want to overhaul. You know, look, half a ceiling, you know, pull the whole thing down. Make sure there's no fire somewhere else. The last thing you want to do is put somebody back in their house and tell them, yeah, it's all good. Then, you know, a couple hours later, you're back there. Right? That doesn't look good. It's not very professional. Have to make sure the fire's out before you leave. Don't be afraid. You know, the arson investigator may have an issue. That's all right. This well, he's a friend of mine, by the way. Integrating safety into the equipment. Last night we were at a dinner. Globe was there at the instructor dinner, and they've been making turnout gear for over 100 years. They're at the forefront of trying to, you know, all the manufacturers are. They're trying to come up with the next thing to help us out. Some of it's good, some of it ain't so good. You know, anybody here on one of those NFPA committees for gear? No? All right. No, they're not going to raise their hand? Okay. All right. I went to a meeting that was similar to that, but it wasn't them. And, you know, they talk about paint drying. Yeah, paint came in first. But, no, we need that. But we also need to take an active role in what's affecting us. And we have to get into that side of it. It's okay to love fires and respond and help people in your area. But we also have to get in on the research and development and all these other things. We need a voice within our community. And anyway, a lot of money goes into what we wear and to keep us safe. It's integrated already in there. Thermal barrier, right? So that's part of your protective safety right there as well. You know, you kind of take it for granted. You know, you have this gear. Gear's come a long way. A long way. When I first started out, we had 3/4 coats and rubber boots. Actually, on some of the calls, we used to just wear construction boots, you know, like black boots and jeans. And it was all right. I miss those days. Anyway, there was a chief I met. He comes to the show, and he says, so I said to him, I says, how did you know when you wanted to retire? He says, well, when all my tricks stopped working, that's when I knew I was done. We have some new concepts here, right? Everybody's familiar with the wind-driven fire experiments and things like that. Are you aware that FDNY invented wind about 2 years ago? Wind is definitely not our friend, obviously. You have to be very careful. And when we talk about, some people don't get the right impression on certain things. You don't have to have a high-rise building in your area to have the effects of a high-rise in your area. A lot of these motels and things that they're building with center hallways and long spaces between the staircases, that's like the kill zone. Because if you have a wind-driven fire and it comes out of that room and you're in that hallway, you're in trouble. When we go to a house fire, we could still have a wind-driven event there as well. But we have a little bit better chance because the staircase is right there. We don't have to, basically look for it. When you can't even find a staircase because the smoke is so thick, be on your guard, right? It's nothing to kid around about. So we have that research going on. We also have the ventilation research going on. Everybody familiar with that or no? That they were doing up in Illinois? Anybody take that in? No one? Okay. You did? You are you part of it? Okay. All right. So, yeah, that's coming down the pike. That's out today. You know what? That's a lot of information. It's going to change a few things. What's that? Yeah, no. I think we'll still be cutting holes in roofs. I hope so. Look, there's only so many things they can't tell us not to do. Because then they don't need us. All right. In this picture here, this is the officer. He's waiting to get in there. He's getting his stuff on. Very simple. I'll just tell you, always wear all your stuff. I had a fire. This poor kid, about 13 years old, they had a motorized scooter in the house, in the hallway. Fire started. Gas tank exploded. She came out of her bedroom just at that time. Killed. Terrible. Not much of a fire. Not much fire. It was pretty much almost out when we got there. But could you imagine you're the same firefighter, you're going in there, I didn't wear my hood. Boom. That event happens. You have to have all your stuff on. You come to the game, get dressed for the game. Because if you get burned, you're no good to anybody. All right. So anyway, he's going in there. He's a little bit of a slow poke. They got the line in there already. How many company officers do we have here? Oh, we got a lot. That's good. Good. Very good. Engine company officers? Very nice. Very nice. Truck company officers? Also very nice. I kid around the truck. I love it. But anyway, the hand line. What is your hand line doing? What type of fire department do you come from? Do you come from an extinguishment-based fire department, or do you come from an egress-based fire department? And I mean that, I'm talking about the hand line. And I'll give you a couple of examples. When I go to a basement fire, or someone like me goes to a basement fire, this camera is crazy. Someone like me goes to a basement fire. The first thing is to put the line on the first floor. And if the fire is doable, I can bring it down and hit the fire. That's an egress-based approach to fire attack, because I'm protecting the egress of the people who live in that space above the basement. I'm placing a line there for the safety of firefighters that wish to come in and use that staircase to go up above. An extinguishment-based approach would be the first line goes to maybe the walkout door of that basement and attacks the fire. You get it? Okay. Now, I believe that I'm going to see that change at some point. And I'm not against that change because we're putting people over a barbecue before we put the fire out. I'm bringing a line to the floor above before I bring a line to the fire floor. Now, we don't operate that way normally, but in that situation, you might be. So that's something you need to think about. Take that back. What is your department's SOP? If you look at it that way, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to put the fire out, or are you trying to protect the egress and then get the fire? Because both lines want to put the fire out. That's not the problem. The problem is we're going to have people above for a while. Okay? So, something you need to think about. Now, if you go upstairs, and I've debated this point, if you bring a hose line into a building through a window, I don't really like doing that unless that window is on the staircase, because the last thing I want to do is find out I'm being pushed out of this place and I got to go out the window. I prefer not to do that. With all that drama already, I don't need more drama to get out of here. So I want a staircase. Now, if I bring the line in just below the fire floor on the staircase, I've had my egress protection and I've upped my safety just a little bit more. So hand line placement is extremely important. Extremely important. We all have to kind of get on the same page with that, though. You know, we have to break it down. What is a good belief? What's a bad belief? What's going to work? What's not going to work? So, are we willing to take that challenge? We might be. We might be. We always hear that the new firefighter is different from the old firefighter. And my thing is, I don't really think that's really so much of an issue. I think we have a lot of bright people coming in the fire service. We need to integrate our training to accommodate them, make a little change here and there. But the biggest thing is, no matter what the change is that we keep them interested. You know, tell them, yeah, you can watch a video. That's great. That is a good tool. I make videos here with them, training minutes. It's a great thing. And you want to watch videos, that's fine. But you got to stay interested. That's the most important thing. But we also have to make it dramatic. It's fun. It's fun to learn if it's a good production. It's not a problem. Training minutes that they produce here for fire engineering were designed for that specific. Young firefighters, firefighters on a busy schedule, firefighters who just want to get a piece of information to add to their pie. Not the whole thing. The last thing you want to do in any kind of drill is go through the whole thing. Better off just taking a little segment of something and working on that, and then build off that. So we're going to use modern media, obviously, but the biggest thing is get them into it. We just had a website designed for our job. It's an internal website, and it's pretty cool. It's good. It's a good website. Not as good as Urban Firefighter, but... All right. Why? Why are we doing things? We need to know the why. And the young student in the fire service gets the bump with, oh, they always want to ask questions. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? So answer them. If you can't answer why we do something, maybe you need to figure it out. There's nothing wrong with the why. But it has to be at the right time. You know, you can't be asking me why as we're going in. That's not going to work. You have to have confidence in the people you work for. Obviously, they do have your best interests at heart. They want to get you back safely. Don't be afraid of why. Provide the reasons. Tell them what's up. I just told you about where the line goes. That's fine. Talk about that. Talk about the basics of what we do. Everybody knows that photograph? Line of duty death. Terrible. Terrible thing. A relative of mine just passed away. She was 91. She was an FDNY line of duty widow for 50 years, my uncle. So the fire service does not forget. And we do learn from line of duties, but that is, of course, a terrible price to pay to learn. We don't want that. So we have to make it better. We have to be willing to make it better. We don't want catastrophic events to be the catalyst for change. It shouldn't be that way. Shouldn't be that way. Not in today's day and age with all the information out there. But we have to strip down some of the beliefs we had. Like I talked to you about opening the hose line. If you think that, if I open this hose line, I'm going to do something bad, and then the room snaps on you, you had the wrong idea in your head. So are there methods of instruction that are leading us down the wrong path? A lot of times what happens in fire academies, the design of the burn building, there were some firefighters who thought they should only knock down a fire because that's all they ever did in the academy. Knock it down, it would grow back up so they didn't have to reset the prop. Well, that's not how you fight a fire. So we have to make sure that what we're teaching in academies makes sense. Do you like having safety shoved down your throat? Doesn't go down that easy, does it? No. You want to wear a safety vest. That's great. People can see you better on the highway. That's great. But do you know how to get off the fire truck without getting hit? Let's get down to the basics. Let's talk about that. We have an issue where the police like to keep the traffic moving. Some of you have read about those stories where we get arrested because we want to shut down the highway, which is, somehow we got to fix that issue too. But our safety on the road is extremely, we're going to get hit. Not good. Shut it down. I believe in maybe not total shutdown, let a little go by, but don't become the traffic cop. They'll go around on their own. Many years ago, a firefighter said to me, he said, never wave the traffic on after the apparatus pulls into quarters, because the first thing they're going to say is, he said I should go. Right? Minor stuff. But you have to think about everything we do. Getting on the rig, getting off the rig, what are we bringing our tools with us? Are we geared up? All of that. All of that comes with it. Has anybody redesigned anything, their hose loads lately, because of new construction? Probably not. That's one of the hardest things in the world to change. We don't like change, but sometimes we need change. It's better to bring it along for yourself at your own speed than to have it brought upon you. And that's what tends to happen to the fire service is we resist, we push back, and then eventually, you know what? Somebody else dumps it on you. And now you have to live with the model they created. So we want to live with the model we create. One of those works. I'm not sure which one it is. I was actually just down in D.C. For a little trip and visited the Capitol. Very interesting. I visited the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. The problem was they were giving away free money, but it was the next day. This firefighter is ready to go to work. He's thinking about safety. He said, well, no, he isn't. Oh, yeah, he is. He's got a hand line in his hand. He's bringing it with him. That's his tool. He's bringing it with him. He's ready. I always like to teach this little trick about when you go to a big fire, you want to do a size up. It's a little different than when you go in first in. You go to a big event that's going on and you're in an engine, bring some hose with you to the command post. Why? Because when the incident commander turns around and says, I need a hand line, you can say, I got one right here. And you'll be put to work. If you don't have a hand line, that's an offer you can't refuse. It's right here. I just skipped it in front of 5 other engines, but I don't care. That's their problem. He's ready to work. And also, if you see here, he's got his own nozzle. Why? Because he knows it works. Safety. Checked it. He's not going to use somebody else's. He doesn't trust anybody else. He trusts his own. Because he checked it. Ready to go. Sometimes when we're taught something, it is not necessarily the best way to do something. Do we have a consensus on things? Nah, not on everything. We're probably never going to get to that point. But, we look at different techniques. Like I told you about the debate I had with the fellow about the holding the nozzle. The biggest problem with that debate was this. I challenged a core belief of his that he held for probably 20 years. And I don't like mine challenged either. And that was probably the biggest issue. It wasn't that he couldn't admit that I might be correct because it went that deep within him that, wow, maybe, just maybe, I was not correct. I don't like it. Most of us don't like it. So we have to get over that hurdle. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Learn the safe way. Doesn't mean, like I told you about, the safe way doesn't mean it's less active. It can be the same amount of activity, but you have to put in what's the best way to do it. Like I said before, you charge the line outside, right? We were using a technique here the other day at the training academy. I'll give you a safe thing. Bring the nozzle and the first coupling to the doorway. Same spot. When you go in, that first 50 feet is going to be a breeze going into a place. Does that increase your safety? You're darn right it does. Because it's going to be less work for you to get that line into position where it needs to be. The quicker you get it in there, the safer you're going to be. So a little trick like that does boost your safety. How do you get that trick? Well, you play with hand lines a lot. You deconstruct. What's the problem? Let's try something different. That's what tactical safety is about. Give them the reasons why we do something. That's fine. We want educated firefighters. Tell them what's up. The more minds we have working on something, the better off it's going to be. This is a fire I had. I was not first engine. Obviously, you can tell by the damage. But I violated sort of a rule at this fire, if you will. What I was always taught was 2 hand lines on a staircase is the max. Why? Well, obviously, it's difficult to move hand lines when there's a bunch of them on top of each other. Also, the stairway gets congested. But if you look at this building, there's nothing on this side that I could use. Fire was on the face of the building. There's nothing on that side I can use to get over there. So I had to put a 3rd line on the staircase. But my reasoning was this. The other 2 were already in position. There was no issue. They were not going to move anymore from the stairs. They were where they needed to be. So I violated that principle, but I had my reasons for doing it. Why? Because I'm a student of the engine. It was not a problem for me. That was my deductive reasoning. That's what I'm saying. Get your reasons, figure out why you do things, do them safely, and you can do whatever you need to do to get the job done. Now, this one I was running out of options, but it worked for me. Everybody, gets that, right? Okay. That's where our new firefighters learn in the academy. What are they learning about? When I got a new firefighter, they came to the engine. First night out, first day, first night, we went out and saw how they were operating a hand line. Why? Maybe they were out sick that week. I don't know. Maybe they were the worst hand line operator you ever saw in the academy. Maybe they were great. But I want to know what they learned. Most of them were just fine because we teach a certain way. We believe that the foot should be out in front of you as you go down a hallway. Why? Are you going to find some steps? Are you going to find a person? When you go to that simple bedroom fire, what do you think is on the floor? The mattress coils. That room's burned out, that mattress is on the floor. If you kneel on that mattress while it's still hot, you are not going to like the result. So, if you have your foot out in front of you, that's probably not going to happen to you. Safety integration. Very simple. You say, oh, all right. There is a difference in how you operate. You know, I had this textbook, and they talked about fighting fires from the unburned side was the best way to do it, and I didn't believe that. In other words, you went around the back to sneak up on the fire and blow the smoke out the front window. The only problem with that is, well, there's a lot of problems with that. First is, especially people that come from a pre-connected hose bed world, you might run out of hose. If you're understaffed, you're going to have a hard time because you're going to have a lot more turns to deal with. Your forcible entry issue is now in the back, not in the front, where you can get your tools or whatever you need. And let me ask you this. When a real estate agent shows you a house, where do they take you? What door? The front door. Why? Because your orientation to the house makes sense. Now you go into this house, I don't know where the hallway is. I don't know where the stairway is. Most homes, the staircase is near the front door. The hallway is near the front door. Once you gain control of the staircase and the hallway, you're on the superhighway to the bedroom. Boom. You'll be right down there, put that fire out. Come in the back, good luck. And you know what? They used to say, in the book, it said, it limited damage. You know what? You got a one-room fire in your house, you're going to have plenty of damage, no matter how you put it out. But that is also egress protection as well, but it's also extinguishment. So it's both. So some line placements give you that double hit, boom, boom. But anyway, that manual was from Oklahoma. Can we reach a consensus on our training? Probably not. Probably not. Even any new thing that comes out. The problem with when people do studies is this. No matter what it is, whether it's smoothbore versus fog, which is always a great debate. I don't really care which one, to be honest. You got to use the nozzle that's on the rig. That's it. You don't really have a choice. Point is, if somebody does a study and you don't like it, you don't have another study to contradict it. All you can say is, I don't really agree with that. It almost sounds like sour grapes. So unless you're going to do another study, that study lives in perpetuity as the definitive study, and it may not be correct. All right, here we go. Pistol grips. Safety, pistol grips. I don't have anything against pistol grips as long as you don't use them. They're fine. I go for training and guys say, I took all the pistol grips off the nozzles, Ray. I said, what'd you do that for? Well, I don't want anybody holding it. I said, well, how am I going to know if they like to hold it if you don't put it on there? It's okay to hold the pistol grip. But if you hold it like this, it's like operating with a stiff neck. You're not going to be able to get the nozzle movement you need. The line needs to be out in front of you. So you say, Ray, what's the big deal? Big deal is you're not going to be as effective. And when you're not as effective, what's going down? Less safe, right? Get a good nozzle technique. Get that line out in front of you. Make the bends. It's like, hey, Ray, how are you? Or, Ray, how are you? There's a difference. So if you see me, look, hey. There was a guy who used to come here from New York, and he was in one of the special operations commands, and I said, listen, I'm not allowed to say hello to you while you're out here. I'll just give you one of these. And that's what we always did when we saw each other. Point is, there is a difference. What are our academies teaching? Look, that's where everybody comes when they start. And once you start, it's hard to change. I could give you a hands-on engine class, big deal. You go home and say, you know what? I do palm over, Ray. I don't really like palm under. All right. You know, I try and tell you, but you don't want to listen, that's fine too. It does matter. This here, by the way, we'll go off on a little tangent here. This here, I don't like. What he's doing is probably fine. He's probably overhauling the place. It's not a big deal. But when you're doing actual extinguishment, it matters. It matters that that line can move. When you have the line this close, it's almost at the point of failure because you're going to have to gate down to gain control of it again. Now, the pistol grip allows you to pull it forward. I get that. But when you do that, you have this right angle position. It's more comfortable. It's what you do. So pistol grips, fine, whatever. But remember, you want to have line out in front of you when you fight a fire. All right. The great debate, vacant buildings. Vacant, abandoned, derelict, occupied, unoccupied. The big question mark. We should just put question marks on them. You know, in Detroit, they were going to mark all the vacant buildings with spray paint, but they decided to mark the occupied instead. It was cheaper. I love Detroit. Anyway, this was right near where I worked. It no longer looks like this. It looks very nice now. They've been all fixed up. But we have to get some consensus standard on that as well. Because, as you know, the housing market isn't what it always was. We have a lot of abandoned homes, not necessarily bad shape, but we have a lot of unoccupied homes in this country. And we have to come up with an idea of how we're going to operate. And it's important for a department to come up with a policy, whatever it is. This way, everybody's on the same game plan, whether it's, you know, whatever it is. We don't go in. We go in after an evaluation. We try and stay up on their condition. Whatever it is, that's fine. Because you have to live by the rules of your department. But this is a problem. This is a problem in the United States right now. I mean, they all don't look like this. I get that. But we have to have a policy because, why? Because we want to keep ourselves safe. But we also have to protect the people. So we take a balanced approach to something like this. We investigate further, right? Would you say? Are you going to go hard charging into this as you would an occupied building that looks like? Yes? No? No, of course not. Of course not. You may not even go in this place. But it's something we have to think about. You can't give your some of you firefighters I know don't even work for pay, which is commendable. But those of you that do, I can't give you a raise. The only thing I can do is pat you on the back and say, good job. Well, how do I do that? Well, I keep you safe, number one. I train you, number two. And we do it together as a team. I've been a company officer for 18 years. I trust my people. They've been trained. They know what they're doing. Does that mean something bad couldn't happen? Of course not. Something could happen. But we all operate at a standard that we've tried to elevate. Do you do that? When you go into the fire station, one day you have senior people working, you have junior people working. There's nothing really wrong with junior firefighters. They just don't have the wealth of experience that senior firefighters do. In other words, there's an issue. Can't get the standpipe outlet open. Okay, senior firefighters probably seen that issue already. Knows, you know what? We'll drop down to the next floor. We'll get another length of hose. This won't be an issue anymore. Junior firefighters just trying to work it. Forgets to notify the officer. Now we have a delay. They don't have that knowledge. That's why we share the knowledge, right? That's why our kitchen tables are so important to us, because that's where our training goes on. I'll tell you another nice thing is to put a table right behind the apparatus. We have one, and I'll tell you what, it's a great place because now you're even closer to the tools and everything else. Lay a tool on there and talk about it. It's a great spot for formal and informal learning. So we have 0 injuries. That's what we're looking for. But you know what? You never get it. You'll never get that because, you know, accidents happen. Somebody says if it's predictable, it's preventable. But, you know, can't always see everything in the fire service. You know, there is smoke too. I would like to think, and we all would too, that what we've been trained to do is the correct way to do something. And of course, we do debate that this week is like a grand debate week here. You know, we're always debating this, that, or the other thing. It's great. So who has the correct voice? I don't know. But some of the things I do know are that we don't have to make safety some nasty thing on the side. We can put it right into what we want to do every day of the week. When you have, accountability. Accountability is not just having a tag or a riding list. It's also, when we talk about those SOPs, we have accountability for tasks on the fireground. In other words, was that done? Or is another company doing the same thing? We have duplication of effort. When we have duplication of effort, something else isn't being done. So accountability is not just about, okay, I threw my tag in the bucket. It's about task accomplishment. Safer tactics. Anybody know any safer tactics for extinguishment that we're hearing about lately? Anybody? Starts with a T? Right. I've heard of that. Yep. Right. That's the big thing that's come up to the forefront right now. And that is used. Does anybody not know what the gentleman's referring to? All right. Transitional attack doesn't necessarily mean offensive to defensive. Transitional attack is referring to stream application from the exterior and then application of the stream from the interior. And it's being used in a lot of departments. It's especially helpful for understaffed departments. Access. You have to have the access, obviously. You have to have the stream there. And are you extinguishment-based or are you egress-based? Right? And we're going to hear a lot more about that. Get your people involved. Our people are our best resource. You have to get the... Okay. Excuse me. Do you think your tactics are safe? The tactics you use? All of them? No. Not all of them. Nobody says all of them. We're going to see a lot of changes on tactics. I have a theory. I don't know if it works or not. When we go to commercial buildings that we're going to cut the roof on, I don't think we should be cutting over the fire. I think we should be cutting maybe about halfway back. I'm going to say, why would you do that, Ray? The fire's going to go to that hole. Yeah, I know. The fire's going to go to that hole. No problem. Like the hatch in a flashover chamber. Fire's going to go for that hole. I'm going to cut in a safe area. I'm going to complete my cut because it's a safe area. I'm going to develop a smoke hole for that to go out, a vent hole. Halfway back, the engine's going to have a nice approach halfway into this place because that's what happens usually. They get about halfway in, then something, they can't make it because it's too hot or whatever it is. But if we do that, we increase the safety of our roof team doing a cut. We make it a little easier for the engine company to move in. I think it's a safer tactic. A buddy of mine actually did it. He said it worked fine. So, we have to examine everything. And we can't always do it. That's why we're using, UL. We talked about the UL study. We have to go to places where they have the ability to dedicate time, money, and resources to this type of stuff. The wind-driven fire experiment, same thing. You think this guy's a little too close? I mean, this is your everyday stuff here. Everyday fire stuff. He's trying to take the front piece and turn it into a freshly clipped rose. That's not going to work. Use the reach of the stream. Knock that fire down before you get in there. Knock it down. Give it a good hit. Make it rain early inside the building. That stuff shouldn't be allowed, to be honest with you. That stuff shouldn't be allowed. Cowboy tactics are not good. My crew, working one day, that's my family in the fire station, right? That's the family we take care of. That's how we operate. We look out for each other. But we do it through training. Training is the big thing, really. You can never go too basic on training. We were training one day on how to lift a cylinder out of the basement, these big 55-gallon drums, and that was cool. Yeah, that was really cool. We got to tie some crazy knots and stuff. But if you take that portable ladder and you bring it to a window and it needs to be raised 2 rungs, the equivalent of 2 rungs, and a firefighter takes it off the building and goes bloop, bloop, and there was somebody at that window, how long is that going to take? You say, do you ever paint a house before? Can't you just go like this with the ladder, bing, bing, and get into position real quick? So at the most basic level, what are we doing? We can lift a cylinder out of a basement, that's great. But can we raise a ladder 2 rungs in quick fashion? You have to be able to skip to that. So the basics, the core, get them down and move on. We talked about the young student, that's what they want to do. You have to satisfy their curiosity. But you can't be the shell answer man either. You know what? Someone asks you a question, say, all right, you know what, I'll give you a little heads up, but here's where you go for the more of the information. Because you want to make sure that that person develops the need to be inquisitive. Now here's some technology we're all familiar with, the thermal imaging camera. Great tool, right? Everybody carry one on their rig? Yeah. They're really good stuff, but you know what? You also have to remember your senses as well, because when the battery dies on that, and you're in the middle of a room, that's not going to help you much. So you go into places, bring a search rope, big places, where you think there's a possibility you won't be able to find your way out. I'll give you another example. You go to a mall, let's say, and they have an interior standpipe, and you have to use it because your hose line's not going to reach this fire in the store. So you violate the rule of hooking up to the standpipe on a fire floor, which is a no-no. That's something you really shouldn't do. But this is one of those exceptions where if I don't do it, I'm not going to reach the fire. But to be safe, you better take a search line to that standpipe riser from the outside to the inside. Why? Oh, conditions aren't that bad now, Ray. Yeah. What happens when it goes lights out and the team wants to leave? Where are they going to end up? At the standpipe riser. And if that's all you've given them, now they can't get out. So when there's no smoke is when you stretch that safety line to that riser, just on the off chance that you're going to need it when you get out. So you have to be thinking ahead. Anytime you get that little tinge in your head saying, hey, you know, I'm not crazy about this place, go for the bag, go for the search line, do whatever it is that your head is telling you, your inner voice. But also, like I said, your SOPs should be telling you stuff like that. So basically look at everything, figure it out, and redo it. Basic firefighter skill sets. We just talked about that, training. Everybody wants to go here. We got to get here first and then build off that platform. People say, wow, that was really basic stuff we learned today. Like, what's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong with that. You can't get the basics if you want to go forward. All right? Now here, the game is on right away in this photograph here. We have the fire meeting us right at the door. We have to open the line up and use that space to our advantage. Get that line going in there right away. Give it a good hit. Now, if you have young, aggressive firefighters, I'm going to give you a little talk before we go in there. I'm going to say, you know what, this is what I want you to do. I want you to hit the fire, hit it for a while, then you're going to sweep the floor. Why? Because I don't want you to burn yourself. That's why. And I also want to know what's on that floor. Are there some steps down here? You know what? If you listen to the stream, it's going to tell you what it's hitting. Maybe there's something in our way right there. When you get that stream bounce back, you're going to be able to say, oh, all right, we got some kind of obstruction here. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe you got to move right or left. But the point is, and a lot of firefighters don't do it, basic stuff. Sweep that floor. You got to sweep that floor because that stops you from getting burned unnecessarily. But with young firefighters, you definitely want to make sure. It's like holding back a pit bull. You know, you got to hold them back a little bit because if you miss something, then we're going to be sorry. I had a fire incident where we missed something. No, we didn't miss it. Excuse me. Fire came out behind us, which is, you know, there's a certain part of your body that gets tightened up real quick when that happens. And I don't know whether we push the fire. How do you like this one? I don't know if I pushed the fire or I developed a flow path. But all I know is there was fire behind me. And that's all I really needed to know. Okay? So. See, we're not a separate entity. We're built in. We're built in. That's what we want. All right? Everybody wants safety. I don't think, when we pull up and it's offensive or defensive, we make that judgment. We may have to make that judgment 5 minutes in. We may flip-flop. We may go defensive right away and then say, you know what? We got a little bit of a knockdown. You can go in there now, or vice versa. Don't ever be afraid to make the call either. If you decide that you can't get in there, it's safer to not go in there. That's your call. Don't be afraid to pull the plug. Now here, this fire here automatically tells us there's some safety things going on here, correct? It's obvious. It's obvious. We have some safety issues here. So, what is that going to tell us? It's almost like an automatic brake. It's telling us we have to get ourselves squared away here. We have issues of heavy fire, potential collapse. We have all these machines in front of us. We have a fence. We have a lot of issues. We can't go crazy on this thing. This fire is pushing us back a step. That's fine. That's fine. Not every fire pushes us back. Some surprise us. We got to cut down the number of surprise fires we're having. Training for firefighters needs to be repetitive. There's a lot of training that goes on annually that we take that, is okay. Anybody do any annual certifications? Like fit testing and stuff, right? Fit testing? I don't know. When they pull your mask like they're starting a saw. Get it nice and tight, Okay. Fit testing, they got their test. Where's our nozzle technique test? Right? We test hoses. We test nozzles. Do we test our firefighters for technique? No. That's stuff we should be doing. That's a requirement we should have in the fire service. Nothing wrong with that. We have all these other things. But our core business, remember, we're the only game in town. We're the only game in town. When people call 911, they expect the fire department to show up. We do. We take care of business. We protect them. We protect ourselves. Anyway, I believe that we should do training that works on the fundamentals, obviously. And good fundamentals never let you down. I worked with an officer many years ago. He was rather unusual. This was before hoods. He always wore a hood. And, he just kind of stuck out. You know what? But he was an awesome officer. And you know what? You can defy your culture a little bit. It's okay to be progressive. I wrote an article one time about 50 ways to improve your personal safety. And a chief I know scratched out wearing hoods because we didn't wear hoods at the time. So a few years later, I says, I guess you should have left it at 50, huh? All right, so we get the curriculum changed. Fire engineering here, they did a nice Firefighter 1-2 book, and they tried to get it a little bit more down to the basic level, and integration, a new style of book. That's what we're going for, all right? Now, is this a safe picture or a dangerous picture? We can't really tell. It could be both. This guy could be a training officer, he's checking on the fire, or he's in a bad spot. I don't know. So, even though the picture has a firefighter near fire, doesn't mean what's going on is dangerous, right? Training fires, number one, should not be like the example I told you this morning. The last thing you want to do is give somebody a fire where they are fighting for their life. That's not what training fires are supposed to be. Training fires are supposed to be a little bit of show, and what they're based on is technique. How to get the line down there, where it needs to go, operating the line, putting the fire out effectively and efficiently. It's not about challenging people and coming out and going, wow, whew, that was something. That's not what it's about. And if you're running fires like that, you're gonna get caught one day. It's not gonna work. Something bad's gonna happen. Changes in procedure. We changed our whole standpipe operation because of this fold. We used to run around, doing the standpipe fold. We'd have one firefighter over here breaking down their fold, another one running over with that fold. And, one person would have the mail, the other guy would have the mail. And, that might work in San Francisco, but it doesn't work in Brooklyn. So this one here is stacked right next to each other. Works very well. Instruction. In this photograph, the two firefighters are getting a nozzle instruction. And I really believe in that, because if we don't have a good nozzle operation, we're not delivering good business to our people. What is this? Does anybody know what that hallway picture is about? I'd mentioned it before. Sweeping the floor. Getting that area clean. I was at a training thing at another conference, and we were doing a multi-room fire extinguishment where we were sweeping the floor and continuing on to the next room. And at one point something happened, and I said, you know what? Why don't we bounce the line off the floor right in front of us? And sure enough, we did it, and it worked great. So when you sweep the floor to get all that stuff away from you, what happens is you tend to shoot it out a little too far from where you are currently, unless you really lower the line. So if you don't lower the line, it's hard to see in smoke. Just take the nozzle and just boom, strike that. You don't hit the floor with the nozzle, but you hit it with the stream, boom, and all that stuff goes out of the way. And now you got a nice clean path to travel down. Now if you do it 3 or more times, you have a spanking issue. On the fireground, we have to examine some of the things we do. Are some of the things we do necessary? Have you ever been at the fireground and you saw some person doing something and you're like, wow, this guy's got no clue? I'm not saying that's this photograph, but the point is you have to think about what you're doing. Stop. Press reset. He's checking out this line. This is the other half of when you charge a line outside the fire area, you also check it. Make sure it works. I talked to one of the nozzle people here the other day. I said, it'd be nice if you had a gauge on the top that showed you how much water. I said, can't you build a pitot gauge into the line? He says, actually, we're working on that. I said, all right, that's good. Good stuff. When you open that stream outside the house, you want to see where the breakover point is on that line. Now, what you should be doing is making sure you're pumped at the pressure you want to be. Let's say you have 4 lengths out, 200 feet of hose. Open your line. How far does that line go, that stream go before it breaks over? That's what you should be having in your head as a visual cue that you have the correct amount of water. Now, if you don't, shut it down a little bit. Continue to get dressed because you're going to go in there and fight that fire. That's a little string around your finger that you need to tell the driver to pump up the pressure and recheck the line again. Don't be doing this with the line, though. This is not the time for that. Just keep it straight. You want to find that breakover point. Now, most of the time, like I said, the entrance to homes is centered on the house. Maybe you're 15 or 20 feet away. You should be looking for a breakover of like 30, 35 feet away. So double that distance. Now, if there's a chief officer in the way, you might have to wet them. These things happen. The other thing is, if you've got a line like this is a fog line. It's an adjustable barrel, and you are making entry into a home and you get bounced around a little bit, you might want to check the stream pattern. It might not be what you want it to be. So you check it just before you open it again. Smooth bore, of course, you don't have to worry about that. But you're going to know that you have water, the nozzle works. There's no guarantee it's going to work inside, but pretty much we've got that down and it seems to work. Okay? Now, he doesn't need a mask yet, but he's going to need one soon. Roof operations are very dangerous, obviously, right? One of the things that always surprises me is that Oh, we didn't know what the roof construction was. Really? Why don't you just put a little hole by the gutter and find out what you're dealing with? Is there a 2x12 under this tar paper, or is it a truss? We should know. If we don't know through pre-planning, we could certainly pop a little hole to find out. You don't want to find out that you're standing on something you shouldn't be standing on, do you? I don't. I want to know ahead of time. Which line don't you like? Both of them are messed up, really. The green one, and this is probably at a fire academy. Green one, and this one here. We talk about integrating safe tactics. This hose line needs to be here on the outer perimeter, not wrapped tight around the newel post. And if you don't think your safety is important, get your stretch like that, and you're either going to end up not reaching where you need to go, or you're going to have a water problem, because this develops kinks real quick. So you say, oh, Ray, integration of safety, that's integrating a best practice. How do you stretch your hose? And I'll tell you this, any hose that's outside the building should be perfect. Inside we may have some issues, but outside there shouldn't be any issues. There's no reason for it to be messed up outside. None at all. This was a wind-driven fire event. A buddy of mine was killed at this fire. It was in Brooklyn, high-rise. He was the engine officer. And we've developed new techniques in our job to try and prevent things like this from occurring. We have a blanket that we can try and put over this window. These are all things that have come out of technology, right? We're integrating some best practices. We did our class the other day. We had this appliance called the Hero Pipe. Basically, it's for commercial high-rise where, they've got a huge area that's on fire and they can't get out of the hallway. So we have to put it out or we're going to keep losing floors. So a captain in the Chicago Fire Department came up with this thing to knock down a heavy body of fire. A lot of things, like I said, come out of line of duty reports. But a lot of things should come out of regular reports so that we don't have to worry about line of duties, right? In other words, if there's a problem with our operation, let's find it before we have a tragedy on our hands. If there aren't any other questions, that's the program for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for attending.